Hi folks, my name is Mike Dobbs and welcome to another edition of Government Matters. We're going to be starting a series of broadcasts today with the four men who have announced that they're running for mayor for Springfield. Each one of these is going to be about a half hour long, and we're going to have the same questions for each candidate. My intent here is to establish sort of a baseline of opinions about some of the issues that are facing the city of Springfield. And starting us off is City Councilor Justin Hurst. Justin, thanks for coming in.
Absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you to Focus Springfield.
So, my first question is a little bit whimsical. If you were sitting down as mayor of Springfield with Governor Healy, what do you want her to know about Springfield's needs and how the state could more effectively help us accomplish those goals?
First of all, I wanted to know that Western Mass exists. I also wanted to know that we've, time and time again, we're left out. If you look at what occurred, during the most recent pandemic, Springfield and the western part of the state was the last to get the resources, whether it was testing materials, or anything else that we needed. We're always put on the back burner. And so there are a number of issues that we're struggling with. There are a number of issues that the state can assist on, from economic development to education to homelessness and housing, that I believe they could play an essential role in certainly providing access and opportunity to money. Oftentimes the eastern part of the state gets the bulk of the money that's allocated, and we don't know that there's money out there. And so we need to make sure that we have a seamless relationship with the governor and the lieutenant governor, letting them know that we can be a vibrant city as well. And we are the third largest city in Massachusetts, and so why not us? And why not give folks an opportunity who are in Boston to say, hey, Springfield is a viable city, and we're a viable city that can, be just as good as any of the other cities, the Worcesters of the world. We ought to be able to boom when it comes to tourism and a lot of the other things that Springfield has. We need to be recognized and acknowledged for what it is that we bring to the table, and I want her to shine a light on that as well.
One thing that's certainly concerned me as a resident and taxpayer is the fact that the cannabis industry in the state has taken off. The amount of money that is being generated by legal cannabis sales is pretty incredible. And in turn, municipalities are benefiting from this. We're a city of 155,000 people, and we have 3 dispensaries. If we go to Holyoke, if we go to Northampton, if we go to East Hampton, the number of dispensaries far outnumbers what we have, and yet we have the largest population. Does it concern you about how the cannabis licensing and the placement of dispensaries and the number of dispensaries, has that concerned you at all? I know it's something that has been talked at the city council, but if you're elected mayor, that's going to be even more an issue for you.
For sure, and I think we're at the stage now. We've taken a cautious approach. If you remember, there were a few councilors that took a trip out to Denver, and when we went out to Denver, there were more cannabis shops than there were coffee shops. And so while I know we took a bit of a conservative approach, I think we've been able to witness from surrounding towns and communities that there are not the issues that I believe folks anticipated there were going to be around cannabis. When I drive by the cannabis shops, there are not people outside loitering. In fact, you don't even know that they exist. And to the extent that there is a demand, and to the extent that there are people that want to come in and invest in the facilities here in Springfield, we ought to let them invest. The idea that for every round it takes 2 years, to me, just is unreasonable. And we ought to have, we ought to be able to see from those that are open now that there are not a whole lot of negative impacts as a result of cannabis. And in fact, there are probably a lot more positive impacts as a result of cannabis than there are negative. And we need to start taking advantage of those opportunities. If there are people that want to come here and open up, we ought to loosen up the process so that they can do so. And, I don't quite understand why it is taking so long, although, I have my thoughts on it, but it doesn't make sense to limit an industry that is booming throughout the country.
For many, many years, economic development has seemed to concentrate on downtown. The question is, for the next mayor of Springfield, is how do we get economic development into the neighborhoods? How do we get it into Indian Orchard? How do we get it into the North End? How do we help the South End? My neighborhood of Maple Heights, Six Corners, there's been very little economic development. There's been some housing development there, but the question is, can we shift the attention to the neighborhoods, and should we shift the attention to the neighborhoods, in your opinion?
I believe you have to. I believe investing in our neighborhoods is absolutely critical. I believe our neighborhoods are wanting. We have a number of areas which you highlighted already that are in need of attention. I don't believe that we just go in there and start making economic development decisions that are made in isolation. We need to incorporate the businesses who are already there, the nonprofits who have existed for a while, who are also in these areas. We need to incorporate the residents, and we need to identify what it is that those communities want. What type of supports do they need in order for those communities to flourish? We had an influx of money with $123 million in ARPA funds. There still is at least $50 million remaining. We ought to make significant investments in making sure that businesses are thriving, and even more importantly, entrepreneurship flourishes. There are a number, every time I drive through the neighborhoods, there are a number of vacant storefronts, and the fact that we haven't leveraged any of these ARPA funds to incentivizing folks to open up new businesses and working with the owners in these storefronts, in my opinion, is problematic. We spent a lot of money giving handouts. We've also spent a lot of money on big businesses in the downtown area, but what oftentimes is neglected are neighborhoods and small businesses and micro businesses. And so we need to do a better job, and we need to invest in them, and we need to work with the owners of these buildings to ensure that we're getting individuals in those storefronts that can help these communities flourish and be vibrant, and really open them up so that people want to live and invest in those areas.
Justin, you were one of the counselors who very much led the fight to establish a civilian police commission. And it was a pretty long effort by you and your colleagues to pursue this. And now we have a civilian police commission. Looking at the performance of the commission, and I know they've not been around all that long, but looking at the performance of the commission, are you satisfied with what they're doing? Do you think there's a need for improvement? Do you think they're doing what you had hoped a civilian police commission would accomplish?
The short answer is no. I don't believe they're doing what it is that needs to happen, but they also were set up to fail from the outset. This is not the police commission that I envisioned. The police commission that I believe the community envisioned was one that was independent and free from political interference. Unfortunately, that is not how those individuals were selected. In fact, many of them came from the previous Community Police Hearing Review Board, and so they were handpicked by the mayor, who bears the bulk of the responsibility for why the Department of Justice is currently in the city of Springfield now. And so the idea that there would be an increased level of transparency with a police commission that was appointed and hand selected by the mayor himself is just not realistic. We needed an open process. We needed a process where the residents could apply. We needed a process where the residents felt as though everything was above board and they could be a part of it, and that just did not happen. On top of that, even with the individuals that were hand selected, we have not equipped them with the tools to be successful. The idea that they are adjudicating cases and conducting hearings without a set of rules is extremely problematic, almost to the point where there probably are going to be some cases that are going to have to either be reheard or certainly are going to be contested down the line because folks have been operating without any sort of guidance. And so we need to do better. I believe that the police commission is the right direction for the city of Springfield. My hope is that with the with the Department of Justice now playing a significant role in terms of shining a bright light on the police commission as well as the compliance evaluators, that we will get an actual police commission that is effective in working on behalf of the people, which has not happened as of yet.
I have to ask this question because in many ways it goes hand in hand with the police commission one. Are you satisfied with the performance of Superintendent Clapprood as the head of the police department?
You know, the short answer is no. I'm not. But at the same time, you know, you have to look at the individual who is responsible for appointing the police commission. I recognize right now that it's not easy. Policing in general is not easy. I also understand that there are a lot of outside factors that are coming into play right now that are requiring our police department to do things that they are not used to doing. The reality is, though, that the Department of Justice is in here for a reason. We've been violating the constitutional rights of our citizens for a long time, and the residents of Springfield deserve better. Now it's just, being brought to light, but the reality is that this has been happening for a while, and so we know that we have great police officers who hold themselves accountable, but we also know that there are other officers who are not held accountable. And when you don't hold folks accountable, it shines a light on those individuals who are working hard and sacrificing their lives on a regular basis and doing things the right way, those who are doing policing the right way. And, I believe it all starts with leadership. And if you don't have a leadership that is going to change the culture, not just in the police department, but throughout the board, in all departments throughout the city, then you are not going to have an effective government. You're not going to have an effective police department or any other department in the city of Springfield for that matter. So we have to do better.
If you're elected mayor, you're automatically the chair of the school committee. So you have the position of mayor in the city of Springfield has very much broad-ranging responsibilities. Now, in your case, since your wife Denise is a member of the school committee, it would be an interesting situation. But nonetheless, I'm curious about what you see would be your priorities if you were chair of the school committee. What are the types of things that, looking at our school district, and in fact, we interviewed Ms. Naylor last week.
Okay.
And one of the first things I asked is if we're back at number 2, and she said the figures will be out a little bit later in the spring, but she believes that we're now back to being the second largest school district in the state. So what Springfield does as a school district just doesn't affect our city. We can also be seen as a leader in terms of how we're handling various challenges for education. If you're elected and you're sitting at the school committee, are there particular priorities or issues that you would like to address?
No, absolutely. There are. And one of the things that, separates me from the other candidates and that I bring to the table is that, I'm a former educator. I was an educator for 7 years, teaching high school English at SciTech, and then in addition to that, I spent a number of years as an administrator in the Springfield public schools. On top of that, I am the only candidate with two young kids who go to the Springfield public schools. One goes to Harena and the other goes to Tag Middle School. And so there are a lot of things that we ought to celebrate about our public schools, but on the flip side, we need to take an honest look as to where we are at. And so when we start assessing our school district, we really need to know where it is that we place amongst the state. And when I last looked at the numbers, there were only two schools that were in the 60th percentile, and that was the highest. And so when you look at our high schools, I believe, if I remember correctly, there were none that were above the 10th percentile in terms of how they rank in the state. And so those numbers are not talked about, but they are real. And so we have to do better. We have to focus on education and academic excellence. We need to ensure that we're monitoring success based off of not just graduation and dropout rates, but also how they compete with other schools across the state. And then, in addition, what are they making when they graduate from high school? When you look at the numbers, folks are not making, they're still below the poverty line when they come out of high school, and even after they matriculate through college. They are not coming out making the type of money that would be able to support a family. And so we need to make sure that our kids are prepared. We need to make sure that they have the skills necessary, and on top of that, the skills that are needed throughout the Pioneer Valley, so that they can in turn be assets to Western Mass. And so we have a lot of work to do. In addition, there is always, there's a teacher shortage. And so we need to make sure that we're doing things that get us the best and most qualified teachers, and also teachers that are familiar with the community and familiar with the students that they are serving, are passionate, are committed, and go into this teaching profession with the idea that every one of our young people can succeed, and the expectation is that every one of them will succeed, and that we will prepare them for life and life beyond education.
We're sitting here in the Focus Springfield studios, and right behind that wall is the sports book for MGM. So MGM Springfield has been in the headlines a lot in the last couple months, and the reason for that is the fact that they are not adhering to the host community agreement in many ways. From making sure that all of the amenities of the casino are actually open, to employment levels. The CEO of MGM Resorts International, Bill Hornbuckle, was in town a couple weeks ago and basically said that they had made a mistake about Springfield, that they had overestimated this market. Clearly, MGM is an integral part of our tourism sector in the Pioneer Valley. Clearly, it's a major employer for the city of Springfield. But there are definitely issues and concerns. And I'm wondering how you view all this, if you're satisfied with their performance so far, or if you feel that really we sort of need to hold their feet closer to the fire when it comes to living up to what the HCA stands for. So I was just interested in your perspective.
I think you have to hold their feet to the fire. They came in to the city of Springfield with a number of promises. Residents were excited. Residents believed that MGM would be the catalyst that spurred additional economic development. And yet it seems as though the city of Springfield is bearing a heavy load in terms of helping to spur that economic development on their own. And so what it is that MGM has promised has not come to fruition, and we need to ensure that we are holding MGM accountable. The idea that you have restaurants in MGM that are not open is concerning. The fact that you have, the Taps Sports Bar. I mean, I came down here on a Tuesday a few months ago, and Taps was not open. I don't quite understand how it is that you expect to attract folks to this facility if the amenities and the offerings that you have are non-existent. And so MGM needs to do a better job. What I don't want to see is you just come here and capitalize on the citizens of Springfield in terms of them spending their money here, and you're not offering anything else for families to enjoy and for families to come in, come down to this area. In addition, we need to do a better job as a city in terms of just livening up the downtown and recognizing that we are not a city that needs to invest in big-time developers, but a city that needs to be an incubator for small and micro businesses. That is what was here before the casino, and unfortunately, that is not what is here now. And so we need to recognize that we are a diverse city, and we need to do things like Boston, for instance, just did in terms of hiring a entertainment sort of downtown nightlife czar. And I'd like to see that particular individual, if we are able to hire them, not just be focused on downtown, but be focused on, what the nightlife looks like for all of Springfield. And on top of that, I mean, the idea that you have so many universities here in the city of Springfield, and, and we're not capitalizing on, those individuals to be frequenting our downtown and livening it up is discouraging. We just had, a volleyball tournament where the city of Springfield was packed, Mass Mutual was packed, but yet everything else around the city of Springfield appeared to be dead. And it was like, did anybody know that there was a volleyball tournament? Did the Artist Cafe know that there was a volleyball tournament? Was there any sort of cross-marketing between the volleyball tournament, MGM, the other small businesses and restaurants, to really attract people here? Did we reach out to Holyoke, who is the birthplace of volleyball, to see how we could, make sort of a connection there? What are we doing to market our city, and market our city in a positive light? We have a lot of potential, and we just need to take advantage of the individuals that are here and the ideas that come from the residents of Springfield. So I'm optimistic, but certainly MGM needs to do more. They need to do a better job, and the residents are not feeling the positive impacts and spin-offs that MGM was supposed to offer.
Well, we have some time left, so I've got a bonus question for you.
Bonus.
I like bonus question. Okay. So the bonus question is going to be pretty easy for you.
Okay.
Why are you running now?
It's our time. It is our time. We have worked extremely hard to impact the residents of Springfield on the city council. I'm proud of the work that I've done. The reality is that in order to really move the needle in Springfield, we need to be in the executive office in order to ensure that we have an inclusive Springfield where all residents are taken into consideration. We need an individual at the top who is going to commit to that in order for folks to see their taxes reduced. There are so many people that are living on fixed income who have seen their taxes go up year after year after year. There are so many people that want a transparent government, an accountable government, an open government that works for them, one in which they feel comfortable contributing to, and that unfortunately, right now is not happening. There are so many people that are shut out. There are so many individuals that are looking for employment. There are so many pockets that are left out, from our returning citizens to our young people that, we're just not doing enough for. And so until we're willing to take a hard look at where we're at and a look that allows us to be inclusive, we are not going to move the needle here in Springfield. We need to appreciate the people that we have here and capitalize on that energy and, those folks that have rich and deep histories here in the city of Springfield, and remember it when it was a vibrant city and community where everyone was able to thrive and flourish. And I believe that we can get back to those times. It's just a matter of who is at the helm and who is willing to put in the work to make that happen.
Justin, thank you very much for coming in today and answering my little list of questions. I appreciate that.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is how government is supposed to work, and everyone is supposed to have an opportunity to hear from the candidates, and so I'm certainly hopeful that that will happen.
Thank you. And folks, thanks for watching this edition of Government Matters, and be sure to watch our other programs that will be centering on talking to mayoral candidates.